Please. have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which we are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that our watershed forms a part of the treaty and traditional territory of the southeastern Anishinaabe. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we live and work. To honor this legacy, we commit to being stewards of the natural environment and undertake to have a relationship and respect with our treaty partners. Thank you. So, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Kriya and Tracy, all in favor? Carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None seen. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of March 2025? Peter and Jerry?
Sure.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Anybody want to, any questions? Nope. Okay. And no deputation. And we have a presentation today. 6.1, the 2024 audited financial statements, and I'd like to introduce Adam Delachez. Come on forward, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to have my back to some people, I guess. Sorry about that. Okay. I brought my computer just in case I can't read the screen, but I should be okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Delachez. I'm the partner with BDO Canada. We are the auditors of Kawartha Region Conservation Authority. Happy to present our final audit report here. We'll skip through to the next page. I won't go through every page in detail, but I'll just, oh, do I have the ability to skip?
Yes.
Yeah, is it this one? Oh.
Printed. There is behind.
Oh, back there. Is it this one?
Yep, either one should work.
Vicky.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I'm gonna have.
Not this one. Oh, just enter. The joys of technology, right? Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. So yeah, you can go to the next page then, and the next page. So this is the audit team. Obviously, myself as partner, Elizabeth Bartosek is my senior manager, and Daniel McLaughlin was the senior on the job for this year. Elizabeth and I both have a lot of experience with conservation authorities. This isn't the only one that we do, and Daniel works on a couple of those as well. So next slide, please. At a high level, just talk a little bit about our responsibilities. So our responsibilities are to audit the financial statements that are prepared by management. So we have audited the financial statements based on the information that has been provided by management. And on the next page, we also, from a fraud risks perspective, happy to report that we're not aware of any fraud that did occur. We don't audit looking for fraud, but we do consider where fraud could occur and do specific testing related to that to make sure that there isn't any indications of fraud. As I said, we're not aware of any fraud that did occur from the work that we did and from our discussions with management. As part of our audit requirements, we are required to ask those charged with governance of the board if they are aware of any fraud. And then I usually pause for an awkward second. And everybody says no. So yeah. Yeah. All right. Perfect. So that's good. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. Next page. Okay, audit at a glance. So materiality was 160,000. That was the materiality that we did use for the audit engagement. That's the number that the financial statements would have to be off by in order for us not to be able to issue a clean audit opinion. We actually test at a much lower level than the 160,000. And again, happy to report that we didn't have any errors or anything of significance that would cause us to believe that the statements would be misstated. We are required to be independent, so we do confirm later on in our report here that we were independent of the organization up to and including today's date. Status of the audit, we are substantially complete. Pending final board approval, we will just need our representation letter signed. And as well, we have to update our subsequent events to today's date. So that would be it, but we are substantially complete. So audit findings, we do a risk-based audit approach, and here we've identified significant risk areas that we've addressed or that we've considered when we're doing the audit. I'll highlight that these two items here are significant risk areas for all audit engagements. So they're not just specific to your conservation authority, but they are areas that we do focus our attention on, and those are management override controls and revenue recognition. We tacked on deferred revenue, and I'll get to that in a second. But so management override controls, obviously, management is in that position where they could, cause things or cause overrides of the control system by doing certain things or changing accruals or booking journal entries outside of the normal operations. So we do specific testing to check the journal entries that have been posted, the estimates that have been used, the accruals that have been booked. And again, no issues were noted in the testing that we did. As far as revenue recognition goes, again, we're making sure that the revenue has been recorded in accordance with PSAB, the accounting standards. And then the further step is making sure that any revenues that have been received for projects that are ongoing or that haven't been completed yet, that those are being appropriately deferred. So we have done testing around the funding that was received. We did confirm funding that was received, and we've made sure that the deferred revenues have been recorded appropriately, and everything is in accordance with accounting standards there as well. Internal controls. So we don't look at the entire internal control system of the organization, but we do look at particular internal controls as they relate to the finance function. And I'm happy to report that there were no control deficiencies noted in those areas or those controls that we looked at. There was no deficiencies noted, so I have nothing to report there. We don't have any unadjusted differences. So again, as I mentioned before, $160,000, was our materiality. We didn't have anything above 5% of that we would report as an error. So there was no errors essentially in this year's audit. Okay, the adjusted, I believe these are probably just adjustments that were made. Next page. Yeah, these were probably just reclassifications and postings that we did do based on management's provision of those amounts. So these are just we are required to report that we did adjust. These were adjustments that were made post the final trial balance that we received. So, okay. Other required communications, I'll report that I don't have anything else to report. So that's that page. The rest of the pages are so here we talk a little bit about our knowledge center. We do have different thought leadership related to financial reporting and just some trending topics that we're seeing. Again, those are available to click through to, or they're available on bdo.ca. You can see some of the thought leadership that we have out there. Okay. We do have a spotlight on ESG. So obviously recognizing that it is something that is starting to permeate into financial reporting and is a concern of users. So we do have some thought leadership on that as well, and you can follow the link to get to that. Again, spotlight on not-for-profits. We do have thought leadership on things that are going on in the not-for-profit space. Again, nothing of import that I would highlight, but there is some good topics covered in the stuff that we post there. The appendices, so maybe just we'll go to Appendix A, which is our independent audit report. So this is part of the financial statements as well, but I will highlight that this is the audit report that we plan to issue. I'll direct your attention to the top two paragraphs, which does state that we have audited the financial statements of the authority for the year ended December 31st, 2024. And in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the authority as at that date, and they are in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it is what would be considered a clean audit opinion, and is the audit opinion that we expect to issue pending final board approval. Okay. And then, as I mentioned, so the rep letter is Appendix B, I believe. That's the letter that I need signed for us to finalize. And then Appendix C is just, again, our letter confirming that we were independent. Okay. That's that.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, do we have any questions? Adam, doesn't look like it, so can I have a motion to receive the report? Tracy and Priya, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Perfect. You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, so we're at 6.1.1. The 2024 audited financial statement, page 12 to 40, and Wanda's on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in front of us is the recommended resolution for adopting the financial statements along with the reserve balances as suggested. And you'll find the reserves in the financial statement on Schedule F, which is page 27 of the fifth financial statement, or page 40 of the agenda package. So this resolution needs to be approved, and the reserves would be aligned as presented in the document.
Thank you. Okay, any questions of Wanda? Okay, so resolve that the 2024 draft financial statements as audited by the firm BDO Canada Limited be approved, and that the reserves be adjusted in the amount of 27,398 reduction to unrestricted net assets, 28,571 reduction to Durham East Cross Forest Conservation Area, 3,542 reduction in Windy Ridge Conservation Area, 2,427 reduction in Scugog land acquisition, and finally 346,288 addition in net investment in tangible capital assets, representing a total increase in net assets of 284,350 in 2024. So, okay, Jerry, and do we have a seconder? Tracy, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and we're on to 6.2. One of my favorites is the Bob Cajun Dam project. Brett.
So again,
Hi,
no.
I love your videos.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, they're so cool. Yeah, they're so cool.
All right, I brought it today in case.
Yay.
Oh, yeah. I've been sending it all around and I'm going,
Hey,
yeah. Anyway, it's got a lot of hits for sure.
Did it come up on social media, on Facebook or?
Yeah, I sent it around. And then I go, thank you, Larry Jones.
oh, that's sweet.
We posted
Yeah. Where you just have to, 30,000.
Yep, thanks. Not to get you in the eye here, Pat, with this laser pointer, sorry. Okay.
Blind me.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. Just a brief update on Bob Cajun Dam Aquatic Habitat Assessment Project. And my name is Brett Trigano, aquatic biologist. And next, please.
I'm liking you today.
So there's a group called Save the Walleye, kind of active in the Kawartha Lakes, Bob Cajun area, and they're really concerned about the state of the aquatic ecosystem. It's actually kind of refreshing to be around these local guys and girls who have, in some cases, made a living off of the fisheries in the Kawartha Lakes through tourism and different operators, or their kids are heavily invested, and they think we can do better collectively. And they're really focused on dam management and really have a bullseye on Parks Canada and how they operate water levels. They feel that, recreation is really important, flood management and everything else. And that because all these typically come to the forefront, the natural environment and the aquatic ecosystem is kind of at the bottom of the list. And they want to see that kind of brought to the top. So there's a website. I encourage everybody to check it out because it lays out the concerns in layman's terms. And we'll go through some of that. But anyways, this is this project is a direct outcome of our Lake Management Implementation Action Plan. So this is a capital project funded by City of Kawartha Lakes to address some of the key priority management recommendations in our lake management plans. And so this particular project is part of our shoreline program component. Slide, please. So beautiful Bobcaygeon. This is where all the magic happens in the Kawarthas, right? The hub of the Kawarthas. This is one of the first locks on the system, like in 1830, so almost 200 years ago. And it's a really popular spot. And I'm just going to show you where we are here. So this is Pigeon Lake. This is Sturgeon Lake, draining east into Pigeon. Here's the dam here. And there's kind of two channels. This would be Big Bob Channel referred to, and this is Little Bob Channel. And we're really focused in around Big Bob Channel. That is a significant kind of fish spawning area. And so that's what we're focused in on. Next slide, please. So Bobcaygeon, so here we are here in Bobcaygeon. Of course, we're at the shore of Sturgeon Lake right here. And this is the Kawartha Lakes here. And it's really important, not just from being one of the first locks, also the most heavy, boated lock as well, between that and Bob and Buckhorn. They're number 1 and 2 on the whole system of the Trans-Severn Waterway. But they're also super important for both the fishery. Next slide, please, Melanie. So the next dam is actually in Buckhorn. So all the fish in Shamong Lake, Upper Buckhorn Lake, Pigeon Lake, collectively called the Tri-Lakes. That's a provincially significant inland fishery. We're blessed with 2 of them in Lake Scugog in our jurisdiction. And so a lot of those fish migrate to here to spawn, to reproduce. And also Little Bald and Big Bald Lake as well. So there's 5 lakes here where the fish can travel anywhere, and they often go to Bobcaygeon Dam to spawn in the spring. Next slide, please. But also, just because it is a dam and it regulates not only downstream, but also upstream. So there's a lot of provincially significant wetlands that are affected. For example, even just off our property here in Goose Bay, when water levels decrease in Bobcaygeon Dam, that wetland is impacted. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this project is to characterize these aquatic habitat conditions. Are there any constraints on the fishery or the aquatic habitat, and can we do better specifically related to the water level regime? So we have a few kind of subcomponents. We want to map these aquatic habitat conditions and identify any factors that might limit fish spawning success. How many fish are actually using the dam? So we want to characterize that. Better understanding the fluctuating water levels on these provincially significant wetlands, which are also, fish factories. And then most importantly to the, say the walleye group perhaps, is they want to test an alternative flow regime at the Bobcaygeon Dam. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So next slide, please. Here's a photo of 100 years ago from an airplane. So here's the dam here. And this is what the dam used to look like until about in the 60s or so, when they upgraded the dam. You can see it's really heavily developed village. There's a long history of impact in the Kawartha Lakes and in Bobcaygeon in particular. And didn't have to fly an airplane for this picture. This is just sitting at my desk with Google Maps. It's crazy how technology can get you the exact same vantage point. Here's the dam now. And since the 60s, they have installed these new hydraulic bottom draw gates. So, and that's a really point of contention from the Save the Walleye group. They're concerned that ever since they put in these gates, it changed the flow regime and to the detriment of the fishery. Slide, please. So I'm just going to highlight these first two. This is an ongoing project. Of course, we've just started this year. So I'm just going to highlight these first two pieces here, some of the work we've done so far. The two fish species of interest, walleye, heavily prized sport fish. You know, if you talk about fishing in the Kawartha Lakes, the good old days, everybody used to come here and fish for walleye. Significant driver of local economy. And a lot of people relate the health of this fish to the health of our lakes. But there's another fish, the white sucker, that's kind of less well known, occupies a very similar habitat. So both of these fish, for example, migrate from the lake into kind of shallow areas, rocky areas, the tailwaters of dams, that type of thing in the spring to spawn. But these aren't heavily fished. And there's a concern that these are declining as well. And so, you know, what's going on here? And so there's a lot of perceptions, you know, is it the dam causing water levels? Is it the water quality? Is it the habitat? And so what we're going to be doing is looking at kind of objective science-based guidelines. And walleye and white sucker are really heavily studied. And they have, for example, optimum, you know, depth requirements for spawning, you know, optimum velocity, so water flow, you know, if it's greater than, say, 3 feet per second, it's too fast. Right, for them to spawn, different substrate like lake bed conditions, water quality conditions. And so we're going to be looking at the literature and sampling all these areas and saying, okay, where's a red flag, a yellow flag, a green flag? Where does it meet these requirements? And where perhaps, you know, it doesn't for whatever reason. And so we're out there doing a bunch of things. We're installing these water level and water quality loggers. So this is our technician, Matt. And he's putting in a dissolved oxygen meter, actually, which is out there right now, and a water level and a water temperature logger. So every hour, these will be logging temperatures and different values. So you can compare, okay, during the sensitive spawning period, where are these values within optimal range? One more slide, please. Yep. And then so here's an example of some drone imagery. So we're using different types of technology. This is high flow coming through the dams here. And you can also see it's so high, it's coming over this spillway. And one of the things that this group wants to do, the Save the Walleye group, is they want to change it from this bottom draw to what it used to be, this top draw. And there's a lot of concerns they feel. For example, there's what's called a vortex of death, for example, where it spins around and spawning fish get trapped here. So there's a lot of things going on and a lot of reasons why they feel that it may not oxygenate as good as it could. And so we're going to be testing all this stuff through a pilot project also in the fall, where Parks Canada has agreed to redirect some of this water over here. But you can see in really high flow events, it comes over there naturally anyways. And next slide, please. And under low water, we can use drones to capture some really cool habitat. So here's our drone flights, and doesn't really mean much right there. But if you go to the next slide, please, Mel. Here's a traditional kind of mapping of what we see from our satellites. This is a Google Earth kind of view, which we use a lot. And when we overlay our drone imagery, if you do that, Mel, please, the next slide, you can see the level of detail. So this is low water, clear water conditions. You can really see into the water. And now we can look at, okay, well, what's this optimal? Where is this optimal habitat? You know, how much is exposed during certain water levels that they can't be accessible? All this really cool stuff. There's this really cool riffle here, which you would never see just by Gord's Marina there. Really cool. And just for an example, here's a square. And if you zoom in on that square on the next slide, the level of detail you can see through our drone imagery is just incredible. And so this is all georeferenced imagery, so we can measure on our computer the length and the width and the area and the volume of this habitat. And so we'll be doing all that. Also, thanks to Parks Canada, using this technology, a remote controlled boat. So this allows us to monitor the flow conditions, the flow velocities, the direction of flow, the depth and everything else in these environments where we can't really walk in. It's too dangerous. And this can cover a lot of ground in a hurry. And so it's really cool applications and for for these large river systems. Here's an output from some of that river surveyor work. This is just the flow direction. And you can see that, yes, there is this vortex here. Here's the dam. The red is fast flows. The green is kind of slower flows. And you can see the direction. And certainly, there is some basis to the fact that there is a swirling effect here. But the majority of the water definitely does go through here. Next slide, please. In terms of fish use, now we're getting into low technology, just we call it like the Mark I eyeball stuff. And so next slide, please. So walleye watch, this is part of the videos we were talking about. To actually estimate the number of fish, one technique is just to shine a flashlight in the water during the fish spawning time. Walleye are pretty neat. They're pretty unique in the sense that, if you go to the next slide, please, Mel, their eyes light up. So it almost looks like when you shine a light in the water, it almost looks like a piece of metal. And you're like, oh, what is that? Right? It's a shiny little, or a lure or something. And it's actually the eyes shining back on you. And so we had staff go out every other night. In fact, this has been ongoing, not just our staff, but M&R and Fleming College and a bunch of different organizations over the few years, which I'll show you. But we were heavily involved in this in April this year. And there's just standardized sampling zones that we got from the M&R. And we just go out at dusk. So when it's dark, and shine a flashlight and start to count walleye at all these different sites. Next slide, please. So we're not getting an estimate of the entire number of, the entire population. It's just a standardized way of doing it to track, in our case, when is the peak spawning, so we can get out there and do things like water quality measuring, the drone work, the river surveyor, so we can capture the height, the most critical period. And here's just an example of when we started, April 4th. Here's the walleye numbers, our total numbers, and it peaked and finished, by the end of April. It peaked in and around Easter weekend, which it always does. So always working late, Easter weekend, which is fine. But we almost, as soon as the spawning started, we were out every other day, basically, counting fish. So the peak this year was April 16th, when water temperatures were about 5 degrees Celsius. Which is a little bit lower. Usually optimal is around 6 to 7 to 8 degrees. So our total number of fish that we found this year was just under 300. Next slide, please. So to put that into perspective of kind of where we are, so this is the entire data record of walleye watch from 2008 to 2015. Of course, it hasn't been done every year. And we just took the maximum number observed on a single event, for example, and standardized to 5 areas that have been sampled every single time. We expanded it this year to see where they were, where there was more of them. But anyway, so we got 211 this year as our maximum. So on that date, that max, we got 211 in 5 different areas. And you can see over time it fluctuates pretty drastically. Last year was pretty dismal, 51. And we think these numbers are actually even higher because the actual flashlights that we're using this year were 3,000 lumen, like the best of the best in terms of technology. Back, 20 years ago, they didn't have LED lights, and anyways, you couldn't see as much into the water. So, but another cool thing though, just about walleye. So here's, almost 1,000 fish. Next slide, please, Mel. 3 days later, so this was April 28th, 2018. So May 1st, they only found 91 walleye.
Oh.
So it dropped, well, it's 10% basically. And so timing is everything, and unfortunately, every year there's no commitment to do this, and that'll probably be one of our recommendations to track, moving forward. Almost at the end here. So here's a social media video. So as of right now, this thing, I don't know, John, if you consider it going viral or not, but it's 60,000 views.
Yeah.
Across all of our different platforms. This one in particular on Instagram is about 45,000 views in English. We also work with Parks Canada to release this in French, but it has over 1,000 views in French. So for those who haven't seen, it's only not even a minute long, I think.
Mhm.
So next slide, and we'll see. A couple more slides, and then just kind of moving forward. So just a brief introduction to some of the things we've accomplished so far. And we'll be reporting back later in the year on some of our key findings on all of this stuff. And next slide, please. And just, yeah, thanks for listening, and to some of our key partners. So Parks Canada, of course, Jamie Schmales, MP office as well is involved. Save the Walleye Group, University of Waterloo students, and the City of Kawartha Lakes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a question. Is Larry happy?
He's tough.
He's the fellow who really got this rolling years and years ago, and he's banging the drum. And I don't think we could have done all what we're doing because we didn't have the technology
Mhm,
back,
mhm.
20 years ago when he started this. So,
And so, great question. He will be happy when there's action.
yeah,
He has been in this business for a number of years. He has seen studies on walleye. He's been involved in studies. And he's really looking forward to the pilot project when they
Yeah.
take flow and put it over the top. But Parks Canada, they won't do that without background research. And so, we're really helping him along, in terms of that. So yeah, we're definitely supporting
mhm,
him. And so he's definitely turning the corner. But again, he's a man of action.
Yeah.
For sure. And technically we haven't done anything yet.
yeah.
We've just been collecting data.
But you will be doing something in the fall, or,
That's correct.
yes,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
yeah.
You might find some surprising results from your studies too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even just having a focus on the area, is good. Parks Canada has never really spent that much time in Bob Cage and monitoring the fishery before. And so working with them, it really, shines a spotlight on it.
Really interesting.
And do you think they'll be committed, going forward? Like next spring?
I hope so.
I'll make sure that
I
happens.
hope so. We'll have a really solid technical report with, some science-based recommendations.
Yeah.
And so it'll, there's already a number of things just from being down there and some of the preliminary data that I think they'll get behind.
Okay, I think Lloyd has a question. Lloyd?
Yeah, thanks. This is really great. I've not been so excited about a fish video in a while. So that's really, really cool. Congrats on that. Any sort of preliminary observations or data, anything that you can share at this point that like directionally or anything like that?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, thanks, Lloyd, for your question, through you, Madam Chair. So this year, water levels were great. During the peak spawn, there was enough water. The core habitat wasn't out of water. And even during what we call the incubation period, so, once the fish kind of come and go, well, the eggs are still on the substrate and they still take time to develop, 2 to 3 weeks, and they hatch. And so the water level management regime this year, probably just the way it rolled out was good. It hasn't been like that in all years. In previous years, it's been relatively low. So that was a good thing. So there is now a kind of a benchmark, kind of a range of what it should look like and what it could look like. But even just being on the ground in terms of opportunities already, there is a channel, for example, right next to the dam It's an old sluiceway. It's an old straightened, some people call it a ditch. They probably pile, the salt from the roads goes there with the snow and everything else. Well, that's actually really good spawning habitat. We found a number of white suckers spawning in there, a number of walleye spawning in there. And so just, protecting that area, for example, which isn't downstream of the dam, it's not on people's radar, that would go a long way, just as a preliminary example from some of the data that would really help the fishery.
Great. Well, it's exciting. I'm just really happy this went forward. Great. Okay.
Actually, sorry, I had another question. Sorry. Follow up. What would the role of you're doing a manual count with flashlights. What would the role of technology be in future years around doing a more accurate count?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. And through you, Madam Chair. So, imagine, and we thought about this, we have this is the drone that we have here. And if we could imagine you put a light on this thing, right? Where it could have a light on it and flies around and rather than just us looking from shore, because we can really only look about 20 meters into the water, and this can fly a predetermined grid, and this does a lot better job of standardizing than we can.
So it could collect data?
It could collect data, it potentially could.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it could take pictures of flashlight and and count the eyes for us type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's something that we could experiment with. We didn't want to do that this year because we're in the early stages of drone technology. We're just learning as we go, but that's definitely a potential for the future, Lloyd.
I imagine you could use AI to help with the counts too. Like once you've had the data downloaded, you could
Absolutely.
make it easier on yourself. What about a fish counter?
So fish counter is interesting. Through you, Madam Chair. So just for reference, for example, at some dams, like on the Ganaraska River at Corbett's Dam, all the trout and salmon, they kind of funneled through one area, right? As they jump up. And there's a camera there and it takes pictures and counts fish. So it's a pretty wide river, Lloyd. At Bob Cajun, there's quite a there's no real funnel, for at least for the technology that I'm used to on the fish counters. And so I'm not sure how that would work, but that's definitely something I could ask the Ministry of Natural Resources about.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, well, this is all exciting and I hope it continues on and they change the flow maybe, right? So we'll have to see. Okay, well, thank you, Brett. And can I have a motion to receive Brett Grano's sorry, Jerry, do you have a question? Sorry.
Sure. I got a bunch of them, but they're tight for time today. But one thing, so they changed the dam to the underwater slough. What was the reasoning for that back in the day?
Good question.
Good question.
For the reason they did it.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I believe it was more of an efficiency. So they can remotely operate those dams now. So rather than having a crew come out and hook up the thing and some of the old logs, they actually go in a circle, right? And it lifts up the log or opens a dam or whatever. Now they can just do it remotely. And so I believe it was more of a efficiency, cost savings type of thing.
The other thing I'd ask is, it's a lot like homeless people. How do you know you're not counting the same fish twice?
Absolutely. And that is a problem, and that's just a bias. That's why it's more of a relative number of when the peak spawn occurs. But when you shine the flashlight, it actually spooks them temporarily. So you have to be very careful not to shine at an angle and then walk to your next transect and show straight, and it's the same fish. And so what we have is we have two observers, and we take the average from both of those observers.
I think I'd contact you another time to go through some of the.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I could talk about this all day. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And I've got some questions too later, so. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so a motion to receive the report. Peter and Kriya, all in favor? Carried. Thanks a lot, Brett. Such good news. Okay. So we're on to 7.1. Permits designated by designated staff, page 41 to 45. Christy Virgo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the board. I'm thrilled to announce that we put through 31 permits in the month of April. In spite of the fact that we were without power for 12 days. So staff really worked very diligently, through that power outage, working from home where they could in order to make sure that we stayed on top of our permitting requirements. As you can see, our stats for April are continuing to climb. I anticipate these numbers are going to look even better once we get to May's numbers. But I want to take a moment to just sort of shout out to my team. I'm incredibly impressed by this group of individuals. Lindsay has done an incredible job of trying to catch up and make sure that we start to turn over our permits in a more reasonable amount of time. The rest of the team has pitched in, everyone from Galen and Harmon to Amanda, and bringing those files in. And they deserve a little bit of recognition at this time to recognize the efforts that they've been putting in. I'm really pleased with them.
It's great. Yay.
Yes. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, we're just chugging along, so I think we have time. Yeah, so are there any questions of Christy on any of the? Nope. Okay, no, they're great. So resolve that the permitting performance report for April 2025 be received, and that the following section 28 permits issued by staff be received. Permits issued 2025-040, 2025-069, 2025-079. Permits revised 2022-407, 2023 -339, and 2023-5359, and 2023-48. So can I get a motion to receive this? Okay, Tracy and Jerry, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. So interim financial statement. Wanda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've provided an interim financial statement at March 31st. Traditionally, our business isn't very active in the beginning of the year, since it's mostly field work and that type of thing. But we have provided the statement. We don't see anything of any shock or running out of course, other than the conservation areas, which we're putting more resources and there's more cost due to the ice storm. And I did put a piece in under the CAO report, and up to this point, we have spent cash of $55,000 between the things that they're unplanned and unbudgeted, such as arborists and equipment and that sort of thing. We've also invested another $40,000 just in labor. It's internal labor, but those folks, 650 hours in that area of staff that were reassigned to the ice storm cleanup. So they may, that affects their productivity and potential for missing deliverables in conjunction with that. There is another area of business that we need to give consideration to, and that is our resiliency. So we don't build a lot of that into a very lean budget, but this, to have people that couldn't access the server or the building to do their work, and it could be mitigated through a generator, for example. We'd have to look at that and say, is this the best way we can continue our business? Because it was pretty significant downtime for a lot of staff. So I'm probably going to bring forward a board report next month. There might be a generator consideration for you to have a look at. So that would be, because it's more than just keeping them productive. It's there's safety issues, there's security issues. This could also be a warming site or emergency center in any type of disaster. We have a lot of room in this building. if we can keep our infrastructure warm, then we wouldn't have any pipe issues or flooding issues that way. So,
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer any questions. There isn't anything exciting, no fish pictures.
I know.
No viral, YouTubes.
I was just wondering,
Yeah.
you know, if the ice storm is designated by the province, can we, as a entity, possibly ask for help?
I think Mark, through you, Madam Chair, I think Mark might have more information than I do, but I think we'd have to go through the municipality.
Yes, so we're still waiting.
So I don't know if your designation.
Yeah, we won't know.
What?
Drag their heels.
Oh my God, the fall? Anyway, no. Okay.
Just maybe just a comment too, if you
Yeah,
don't mind,
yeah.
Madam Chair. And I'm glad to hear you bringing this forward in a report, you know, talking about a generator. For me, being a business owner, when the Direcco hit in 2022, we had no hydro for 7 days, and we lost all our trees and our coolers, which was like hundreds of thousands of trees, and it's not insurable. So we did a big investment after that as a learning curve. We went through this state of emergency, and we were able to run our coolers and whatnot, and you know, we weren't in that same volatile, you know, situation. So to me, I'm glad to hear that, you know, we're thinking about moving towards, because this is going to happen more frequently for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So
I just, that's interesting that it could be the fall, because, you know,
that's what.
that's going to affect all the, you know, mostly us really, if you look at, yeah, all the people affected. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, can I have a motion to receive Wanda's report? Kriya and Tracy, all in favor? Carried. Sorry, guys, I'll get you up there. I can't see you that well.
I'll remind you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we're on to the CAO report, 7.3. Mark.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll highlight a
We've got
couple
lots
of
of time.
key items in there. There's been a lot of activity over the last month. So there's a few items that I think are particularly interesting. One, of course, is, as we've been discussing, the recovery from the ice storm. And we have been working through the trails and the roads, trying to make sure that those areas are clear and safe. We have opened up a couple of those areas, including the road now, which is great. So that got cleared actually just about a week ago. And we still have some assessment to go on a couple of areas. We haven't been down to Pigeon, so Pigeon River Headwaters Conservation Area, it's remains closed as a result. We are optimistically hopeful that all the trees are looking good and not laying down at all. We did clear the group camp road, which was a big mess. We actually hired Rockwood Tree Services to assist with that. They had a massive spider lift, I think went about 80 feet in the air. And some of the trees were still higher than that, but we were able to get the hangers to make it safe for the groundwork that had to happen after that. And they were great. They chipped a lot of areas on the road that our chipper won't be able to do. So they're able to get some bigger material through that. And they worked really hard. I saw the one guy at the end of the day and he was absolutely gassed. But they put everything they could into that, and kudos to our crew as well. They were pretty much the same for the past month and almost 2 months, I think at this point. So we are making progress. It's slowly opening, and as Wanda mentioned, we'll have some more considerations for the board coming into the next meeting. We were busy with recruitment. Of course, our ice storm recovery was a little bit slowed down with bringing on more help in the conservation areas, IWM, Integrated Watershed Management, and Corporate Services. So there's a lot of onboarding that occurred, and we were able to hire an agricultural stewardship technician as well. So Joshua Nozo, he's now the agricultural stewardship technician, and that is primarily working with the ALICE program. Getting things underway on that front.
It's great.
The province did have a couple of bills that came out, Bill 5 and Bill 17. Bill 5 was, they're both really looking at advancing the province's priorities on the building front, as they had promised during their election campaign. Bill 5 is Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act, and Bill 17 is Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter. In the review of those two pieces, there was nothing that directly affected our business. If there's any impacts, it would be more tangential. So it didn't affect the Conservation Authorities Act or any of the regs that we have. So that's a good thing for us, I think, at this point. I know it impacted municipalities more so. But as a result, there's you don't see any of the commenting that we do on the ERO postings. Conservation Ontario did put forward some comments on that. That's actually in as one of the items that we received in time for the board meeting. Our conservation areas crew, while they were doing the merchandising, something that they were quite eager to take on was some merchandising for conservation areas. And so Ken Reed Conservation Area, we saw some pictures of that in the report, some really nice hoodies and t-shirts that are looking at a way of generating a little bit of revenue for the area, and at this point we've actually broken even with our little kind of test area. Lots of positive comments from the community on that. We were at I think it was one of the Fenland Falls shows that were going on, and we actually sold out of different sizes at that event. So that was great. And tree seedling sales have been completed. We sold 10,250 seedlings as part of our tree seedling sale. And our full service tree planting is also complete now. And there was 22,230 seedlings completed as part of that initiative. So a lot of the heavy spring work is done. Our naturalization plants as well have been dispersed, and that's actually going on over the next couple of days into the weekend. So lots of good things happening on that front. Also, our water funds for both Durham and City of Kawartha Lakes have been met by the different committees that organize and kind of let out the funding for those. So we'll be looking at $82,000 between the two programs dispersed amongst 22 lucky recipients, and that work will continue throughout the course of the year. So very well subscribed for those programs still. I'd like to highlight our GIS technician, Corey Hayes. He was recognized for his expertise on automation of processes. So this is one of our kind of pushes to make sure that we are effective in what we do, and automation is one of those things that really makes sense. And you spend the time up front to code things and make sure that everything works, and then on the tail end every year thereafter, you just rely on the process itself and the processes that you set up through the software. So this is something that a couple of CAs are doing. He was one of 3 panelists that presented to an information session amongst conservation authorities. Another exciting element is climate change. If you recall, in the budget deliberations, we had a number of items identified in the climate change category to further our strategic plan on climate change. And we were actually anticipating a budget amount for this project into next year. However, we were chosen by Eco Canada to participate in one of their programs. It's called the Ignite project. And as a result, the work that we were actually planning on doing next year is coming to us actually for free.
Wow.
So that's a tremendous, I think we pegged it at somewhere between 15 and 30,000. So this is fantastic. So this is a great cost savings. We have some work internally in order to collect information for their consultant to generate the information, but it'll do all the things that we were looking at as part of that strategy. So really great news. And in the integrated watershed management department, just lots of field sampling going on at this moment. So the season has started, sampling on lakes and rivers and working with our volunteers as well on that. So lots of exciting things. There's a lot of other items that are identified in terms of projects that are ongoing or progressing, such as Burnt River floodplain, Talking Forest, the acquisition of the utility terrain vehicle, which is imminent, if not picked up, is like very close. And source protection amendments are also ongoing, and flood forecasting, everything is returning to normal, which is great. So that concludes
Great.
my.
Oh, we've got half an hour still, we're being so quick.
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, maybe we could get Brett back for some more questions. We got half an hour anyway. I was just gonna say that, oh, Jerry, go ahead.
People,
Well, I was just gonna say that, I'm bringing a memo forward on Bill 5. And I did speak to it in our notifications on Tuesday. I think it's, really overreaching. So I hope the province will listen. The more municipalities, because it really does affect municipalities more so than us. I mean, we've already, take the right to, comment on natural heritage is taken away, but, it's back into the, on the city. So, and municipalities, I mean to say. So, I hope people will go and make some noise. Jerry was
But just
first.
to that point, though, I'm part of an AMO land use planning task force.
Good.
And we talked about Bill 5 a couple of weeks ago, and every single municipal rep showed great concern about that one. But my question would be for these special areas that will be designated, are none of them on will none of them be on any conservation authority regulated lands, or is it a given that they won't? Because if they are, then it does concern us.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that is yet to be seen. My understanding from reading the legislation is that they're proposing this to go forward, but the actual areas haven't been identified to a more finite degree. So
I guess we should note that if they are, it definitely.
and then, yeah, there could be an impact at that point.
Yeah.
So are other municipalities, are they doing resolutions or I'm just wondering what you folks are.
Message back through AMO certainly to the problem.
Yeah, for sure, but
Yeah.
it also helps with, I think individual municipalities.
You share what you have with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good. It's going forward to our next committee of the whole. But there are lots of resolutions from other municipalities.
Yeah, I'd like to see them. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah. Jerry?
through the chair, back to the report, you were mentioning about the automation and all that's great. And the concept and the excitement around AI, how it's gonna change the world and revolutionize things. I've been involved in enough and that kind of stuff to realize that sometimes it goes off on a weird tangent. Are you still looking at doing in-person sampling to like on a random thing to see if the processes that you're automating are actually reflecting back accurate data?
So part of the, yes, absolutely, through Madam Chair, that is, to me, that's all part of automation, is you can trust technology, but it's everything is developed by whoever's developing it. And you always have to test the results. So one of the first things that we do when we automate is make sure the results that we get make sense. And once they make sense, then we're okay to repeat that process over time. And an example is our regulations. So when we go and create those automated processes, it's really just like an individual clicking the steps and making it work. But the automation means that the person doesn't have to click the buttons, which speeds it up tremendously because it takes care of where the layers are stored, pulls them up, and a GIS technician back in the day would have had to do all of that stuff manually. And we have, over, 121 different individual maps back in the day where we would have to make those individual edits. So now this streamlines that entire process and makes things a lot smoother. And then the key thing that we do too is on top of that verification, once that model spits out the output, we verify the results anyway. and make sure it still looks good. The added piece that we do is if there's any changes, we make sure the modeling is then reflected back in the coding so that we're able to adapt as well. And then that becomes the base. And the same testing regime follows through as well. Yeah.
Any other questions of Mark? Got some time. Okay, motion to receive the report, Jerry? And Peter? Oh, Harold, do you have a question? You're muted. You're muted.
I am unmuted now. No, I was just gonna second the motion to receive the report.
Sure, we can.
Yeah.
Sure. I've got to get you on there. Okay.
Sure.
Moved by Harold. Okay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so 8, no action items. So we've got lots of time here. Could we get,
Did you want to do correspondence?
where is that? I don't have that. Oh, yeah, course 7.4, right. Yes, sorry.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. There's a couple of pieces of correspondence on the agenda as well. There's 3 pieces of correspondence. The first is the Conservation Ontario annual report, which contains some really interesting information for you. You can see that the results of the permits are quite high amongst all the authorities. 96%, I think, was the rating that I saw as I was reading this report, which demonstrates our commitment as conservation authorities across the board to make sure we have excellent service delivery on that regulations permitting front. And the rest of the report highlights all the good work that conservation authorities as a whole are doing. The other item is recognition of our new board member from the City of Kawartha Lakes, Mark Doble, sitting on the board. And the third is the Conservation Ontario comments for Bill 5. And it's specific.
They start on, could you tell me, please, does anyone know what the Conservation Ontario, I'm still on the.
Yeah, the Conservation Ontario comments will.
Oh, I see, probably 137.
Yes.
I haven't read them yet, I have to.
Yeah. And the summary of that letter is really aligning the backdrop to this letter, of course, is that we're not responsible for commenting on natural heritage anymore. So recognizing our mandatory programs that have been set by the province for us. We did not, as the Conservation Ontario, comment directly in terms of the act, other than aligning for any future opportunities, given that we, as conservation authorities, have a lot of properties where there might be opportunities to further advance any of the provincial initiatives to that end. So other than that, that was really the major item that was brought up in the comments.
I was just going back to Bill 17. Can you flesh that out a little more? Because I sit on the Ontario Climate Caucus and they don't know yet really how that's going to play out. Do we have any more information on Bill 17?
I don't have a lot of additional information other than what was posted on the Environmental Registry of Ontario. I know that there was a designation of transit zones that were important for the province, and I think complete applications on the municipal front. For our business, looking at the items, there really wasn't much in the way of conservation authority impacts for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so is it possible to get Brett back if we have some questions?
I think the other people will come in.
I don't know if we can start early though. Right?
I believe if they are
ready,
I've teamed him, but he's not responding. I believe he's doing bugs.
Oh,
He just went up to the.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know we would get through this so fast, so that's great. I don't know, can we start if they're here?
If they're here and they're able to start earlier and the board's willing, I think that's something that is possible.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I guess, just a motion to adjourn this part of the meeting. Right,
You still haven't accepted the correspondence yet, have you?
that's right. Do you want to make that motion?
Yes.
Great, seconder? Okay, Tracy, all in favor? Oh,
Yeah.
all in favor? Yeah,
If you wanted to, Madam Chair, we could look at any new business reports as well and do those items, just flip the.
just looking for that. It's not on here, so. Do.
After the.
No, they printed it out for me. It's idiot proof, but it's not there. Sorry. Oh, it's up here. Okay, that's sorry. Okay. I thought that was part of the hearing. Okay. Okay. So number 10, any new business? Peter,
Yeah, I have one thing is, the Kawartha Lake Stewards are meeting in Buckhorn on Saturday, 9:30 till 12:30. It's usually very interesting.
Yeah.
And, they're really hardworking volunteers.
I'd like to go to that, but there's also the spring fling here on Saturday at 10 o'clock. So that's kind of in the middle of all that.
That's the
So
way summer is all.
I know. Send my regrets, will you?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business? No, okay. Reports and any updates from board members? Besides that, okay. Nothing for closed session, so 13 is adjournment. A motion to adjourn. Priya and Peter, all in favor? Carried. Sorry, guys, I should have grabbed you guys. Yeah, you were in charge of
I
that.
know, I know. I got distracted. I'm happy to give up my motion to give it to.
Yeah, okay. All righty.
Quick break between now and 2:30.
Yep. And if they want to, you know,